So who's got a question you'd like answered?
Well, when I was giving, I was wondering about hand positions and wondering why do I have to have my two hands together? Can I just use one hand or have two hands in different places?
Okay. What happens is we're creating a field of energy. This is all about fields of life force energy. And as long as you have two hands, I recommend you use both of them. And if they're closer together, you create a stronger field. And the more you focus it, it's more like a magnifying glass on this particular area. If you're focusing into one little spot, it's like you heat up that little piece of paper and it burns. But if you try to heat up a great big bottle of water or a big barrel of water, you have your hands separated really far, you're not creating the field as intensely. So bring your hands close together, and if you've got two hands, I suggest use both of them. Who's got another question? Yes?
My question has to do with talking. As the giver, if I'm focusing 100% and putting my energy, having the energy come through me, does talking take away from that? Should I keep silent during the whole thing?
Okay, that's a good question. When you're running energy into another person, talking can take away from the session while you're working. Now, if you think about driving your car onto the freeway from being at a total stop, you push down on the gas pedal really far and you get the car up to speed, and once you get it up to 60 miles an hour or 70, then you can let up on the gas and it'll cruise at that speed. So if you're running energy, at first when you're bringing their vibration up to a higher frequency, you really want to focus, you really want to concentrate. Once you get it up there, you can say, well, how's that feeling? But I wouldn't really suggest having long conversations, but you can keep it up to speed without as much work. Keep it up at that higher vibration once you have it there. What other questions? Yes?
When you're using your hand, is it important to keep the hands still, and also to follow what the person is saying, or just follow what you feel?
Okay. When you're running energy, what you want to do is you don't want to move your hands around while you're giving the session. You want to have your hands still on one spot.
But it was mostly, when I say moving, it's not moving around like that, but it's moving like on
Oh no,
spot.
keep your hands still while you're working, because it'll create a stronger energy field for the other person. Yes?
So as a recipient of the work, is it advantageous or deleterious or neutral for me to do the breathing as well?
It's actually a good idea, although I don't tell people about that at the very beginning, because I want people to see how extraordinarily powerful this work is, even without getting another person to do breathing. Now, during a session, you can improve the session by having the other person do some deep breathing, and what you really want to do is get them running energy. But if you tell them to run energy, they're going to go into self-doubt. So a very simple way of doing it is say, put all your attention underneath my hands, breathe deeply into that area, and tell me everything you're feeling. If the sensations move to another place, or if you're feeling more pain or whatever, let me know what changes. So put your hands on the spot, breathe deeply into it, tell me what's happening, bring your attention there. That's all you have to do, and that way you're getting them working. And a really interesting phenomena that happens is if you have your hands, say on somebody's knee, and you're running energy into that knee, and then after a few minutes you say, oh, by the way, put all your attention underneath my hands, breathe deeply into that area. Within a second, you'll probably feel this huge surge of energy in your hands. And you say, oh, good job. And they'll think, my God, she's psychic. She knew when I got my attention there. But you could really feel the difference. And so that's a very good way of working. Yes?
During a session, how long does it take the person that you're working on to begin to feel that energy?
Well, most people will generally tend to feel the energy right away. Within seconds, they'll often feel the life force energy. But there are some people who just don't feel any sensation at all, no matter how long you work on them. And I've had people complain, well, I didn't feel anything while you worked on me. And then they go, huh, weird, all the pain is gone. Because they just don't notice it. Some people's nervous systems are hypersensitive, and they'll feel everything so profoundly. And other people are very more subdued, and they're not going to feel a lot of sensation. And you have a question.
I'm wondering if it's ever painful to receive energy from a session.
Yes, it can be. Pain can flare up during a session and get stronger than it was before. And it's a very temporary thing, and then I encourage people to trust the process. let the pain do what it wants to do, let it go through the system. Remember this 13-year-old boy had had a skiing accident where he broke his knee, and after the cast was off, he was walking around with a limp, and his father said, "Hey, could you work on his knee?" So I said, "Sure." So I happened to be there, and I worked on his knee, and he said, "Ow, you're hurting me, you're hurting me." I said, "Well, breathe deeply," and he breathed, and he says, "Now it's on fire." And I said, "Well, just breathe deeply, it won't last long." And he breathes, and he says, "Ew, now it's weird, it's all pins and needles in there." And I said, "Just breathe deeply." He goes, "Oh, now it feels nice and warm and good in there." I said, "Okay, breathe deeply, that won't even last too long." And he breathes, and he goes, "Oh, that's fine." And he gets up and he walks without the limp. The next day his father said, "Work on him again." He said, "I don't need it. No more pain anymore." So you'll often see things flare up, especially from injuries. Injuries are the most common time for the pain to flare up, but it can do it other times too. And I always celebrate, by the way. Somebody says, "Oh, I'm getting all this pain when you're working." Well, you're just touching lightly, and now the person's experiencing a flare of pain. I say, "Good," because I know it's going to be very short-lived, and that's going to be the end of their pain in most cases.
Is it important that I keep track of my counting when I'm doing the breathing?
No, not really. What you want to do is just get a general sense of the timing of the breaths. I know some people are going 1, 2, 3. It's just too much. It's not about that. You get the sense of the pattern, and you just keep the pattern going. And you had a question up here? Okay.
How long should a session last?
Well, how long should a session last? There's no clear answer to that question. It really depends on what a person needs. I've seen a lot of people at my demonstration lectures where I'm doing 2 or 3 minutes on each person, and that's what they needed when they come to the workshop. They say, "Oh, this pain I've had for 20 years went away from 2 or 3 minutes." Other people may need a whole series of sessions. There was one man, a fellow named Lamar, worked on in Southern California, who had muscular dystrophy, and his calf muscle, Lamar said, was about 2 inches across. He was 60 years old, and he's never been able to walk. After a series of 1.5 to 2 hour long sessions 3 times a week that went on for 3 months, the man's calf muscle doubled in diameter, and now he's walking for the first time in his life. So there are too many variations to know how long a session should last. Basically, it's as long as the person needs it. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes, we got one over here. Yeah?
I was wondering, in quantum touch, how does it usually affect the emotions of the person you're working on?
This is a huge area that emotions can come up during a session. There can be tremendous emotional release during a session. If somebody's having a panic attack, you put your hands, it's where does it hurt technique. Where do you feel the panic? I feel it here, I feel it here. Wherever it is, you sandwich that part of the body, run the energy, and in almost all cases, people will come right out of the panic attack and feel better. We've had people with depth of emotional release from the sessions, and it clears it out from like a cellular level. It's very transforming. It's one of the most wonderful ways to work, and I believe in the future psychotherapists will all be required to learn to do appropriate touch and to use it when it's appropriate. Yes?
I was wondering, do you have to be in a loving space when you do this work?
Do you have to be in a loving space? Not really. What happens is, I've done this work when I've been depressed, sad, angry, hurt, just downright feeling rotten, and it works wonderfully well because the life force energy is what I think of as non-enculturated or non-associative love. It's a love we are as a spiritual being that comes through us. And if you're in a great mood, you can raise your vibration even better, but if you're not, it'll help your mood. Any other questions? Yes, we got one in the back.
I was just wondering, what are some of the biggest mistakes that beginners can make that would keep them from being effective?
This is very important because there's only 3 of them really that we see. One is being in an awkward position that's uncomfortable because that takes away from the energy flowing smoothly. The second one is having tight hands, which we talked about before, and having people, make sure that your hands are loose. And if you're watching this video, please help each other have soft hands. And if you see somebody in an awkward position, help them to move around and adjust. Don't bend over to work on the foot on the floor. Bring the foot up to your chair. Hold it in a comfortable position. And the third mistake is that people forget about breathing. You got to keep the breathing going. If you just do those three things, people will do wonderful work. And a question here.
So what if I'm working on someone and they don't believe in quantum touch? Does it still work? Or?
Yeah, that rabbit didn't believe in what I was doing either. I didn't say to the rabbit, "You're getting very sleepy." The chiropractor didn't believe that the bones were going to move. We're having people who are under general anesthesia who are receiving quantum touch sessions, and the blood oxygen level, when it dips down to 92% and it starts being critical, and the patient could die or get complications or infection, we got a head of the anesthesiology department doing sessions and bringing the blood oxygen level. And placebos don't work when people are under general anesthesia. So it doesn't matter how much or little a person believes in the work.